You caught me doing that thing that everybody else is doing, which is staying inside because we're all gonna die. But I digress. This week we're welcoming Doctor Who Exactly, a rewatch, a global thing. Unlike several other global things, rewatching Vincent and the Doctor, the ultimate ginger. Vincent and the Doctor first aired in 2010, which is 10 years ago, because we now live in 2020, current year argument. Right, so when I first saw this episode, I was kind of, I thought it was alright. In hindsight, I've grown a lot more fond of this episode. A little bit of a content warning here. This episode deals with suicide and depression and all the nasty stuff, associated with it. If you or anybody you know is dealing with these things, know you're loved, and please, there's no shame in trying to find help. Vincent and the Doctor is about the Doctor taking Amy to the Louvre, of all things, I think, and showing Amy a bunch of paintings, which is kind of a weird trip, because why would the Doctor just take her to a current day museum to show her old art? Because, okay, so it's just what we needed to set the plot off. So, for this episode, they cast Tony something or other. I'm bad with names. And even though he is Scottish, he looks like the spitting image of Vincent van Gogh. And there's a monster, and only Vincent can see him. And that's the plot of the episode. There's an invisible monster, and it attacks people, and only Vincent can see him. When I first saw this episode, I was like, well, it's a good thing that the monster is invisible, because it looks kind of naff. And it was back in the day when I was a lot younger and less, involved with dealings with people with mental issues, which, at one point turned out to be me as well. Since then, I've changed careers several times, and for a stint, I worked with people with disabilities and, mental illnesses of all kinds of sorts, from a governmental position. Just a few years. It isn't my current career or anything, but it did broaden my spectrum on, knowing how much this can impact someone. It went from a nebulous concept I did not know how to deal with or heard of beyond thinking, oh yeah, depressed must be bad, going to a thing that, nearly everybody's dealing with bugbears and mental issues of their own sorts, and it's very difficult to see underneath the surface of a person you know. Everybody has issues, you just don't know them. Right, so how does this relate to an invisible turkey monster that attacks people? Well, the Doctor says it's pure evil, so he goes back in time and finds Vincent van Gogh. At least Bill Nye says Van Gogh, even though, it's close, it's better than Van Gogh, Matt Smith. And most of this episode is basically just that. It's the Doctor and Amy interacting with Vincent van Gogh, and in the end they encounter a monster, and most of it is just talking about loss and dealing with depression and how it can crush a person's life. And there's a little sub-thread about people in the village dying and how they can prevent this, but literally most of the episode is just them getting to know each other, becoming friends, and dealing with what an eccentric person Vincent van Gogh is. And I really don't know how to say this now, because in Dutch it's Vincent van Gogh, the English say Vincent van Gogh, and I've heard it bastardized further as Vincent van Gogh. And I'm like, just, the Dutch painter. So, the Dutch painter. And so they end up finding him in a church, which is the church that he painted, that the Doctor saw the monster in, and they confront him, and it turns out that this feral beast that was part of a pack of killer monsters that are pure evil, according to the Doctor. It was a sad thing that he died, and he's petting an invisible monster as he passes away. Right, so here's where hindsight comes in. The monster is invisible, and it's a very obvious metaphor for depression. And I'm a bloody idiot. I did not get this the first time around. Depression is an invisible monster. The invisible monster is an invisible monster. I did not get this the first time around, and I can't see how I did not. Was I that naive at age 20? Maybe. But, you know, it's good to have developed as a human being that I can see this now. Furthermore, the chat the Doctor and Amy have when Vincent is showing them the night sky and how he perceives things. This is beautiful. It's magic. It's one of the best scenes in Doctor Who, and it's not even about the weird stellar scientific stuff or the science fantasy. It's not even about weird creatures or time travel. It's just, this is how I see the world through the eyes of an artist, and it's magic. Not literal magic, just television magic. And, you know, there's the end. The end is, there's a pop song. And if I'm one of those people, I really don't like pop song endings where it's like, CW does this a lot. It's like they're trying to flog some artist or other, and just stitched over a few scenes is like... Scrubs did this a lot, despite the fact that the music in Scrubs on the whole is pretty dang good. But here it's like, I really don't care for this song, and I really don't like this concept. But the ending scene where they show Vincent in the museum in the Louvre, that is so sad. He sees his own works, he sees he's being recognised, and he cries, and it's like the sadness in his eyes. It's just, it gets to me every time. And then we get to the bit where Amy is like, yeah, that should have done it. We've definitely saved his life now. You don't know how to do a Scottish accent like hers. And it turns out they didn't change a thing. In the end, he was still depressed. In the end, he still took his own life. And that's horrible. And the doctor says, like, the bad things we have in our lives don't subtract from the good things. Amy and the Doctor, having been friends with Vincent van Gogh, added to his part. And that was my battery dying on me. I beg your pardon. Yeah, so it's a very low concept episode, but it's perfect in execution, and I can't even talk about it for that long because, like I said, nothing much happens. It's pretty brilliant. This episode is just brilliant. There's some lovely bits, like when the Doctor is arguing with the TARDIS, that's great. He uses a facial recognition thing and it shows us the first and second Doctors. Lovely. He's running around with a big old mirror and there's an invisible monster. That's just a bit naff. But this episode, this is recommended. It's like one of the best episodes New Who has produced, and it's probably... it helped cement Series 5 as, you know, a showcase that New Who could survive without Russell T Davies. So, that's it. That's all I'm going to say. Vincent and the Doctor is fantastic. In the meantime, there has been another rewatch of the 11th Hour. So, I suppose we're going to be discussing that very soon. Although, also, I'm going prematurely bald. No, I just gave myself a quarantine haircut. See ya! Hi, this is me in the editing room, and I'm taking this on my phone because I'm a professional. And I really wanted to add that after doing the little vlog, I read some comments of Richard Curtis, the writer, and he spoke about he wrote this episode about depression because his sister had taken her own life, and she really loved Vincent and Van Gogh, and she loved Doctor Who, and this, he quite literally put the two together in her memory, and I don't have any particular insights to this. It's just something that's really lovely because he wanted to write something that emphasized the fact that she was still important to him. She was still a person that he loved very dearly, and yeah, in these times, I think it's very important to know that you are loved. Yes, you are. That's it. Bye. Also, I still can't get over the fact how short my hair is.